It is exactly 4 p.m. Central African Time. Good afternoon to you, Nigeria. Good afternoon, Kenya, Algeria, Ghana, Mozambique. A very good afternoon to you, Eritrea, Botswana, the Seychelles, Cape Verde. Good afternoon, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Thami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, sport and business. Let's start off at the news desk for your latest local, continental and international news with Jwalane Tulo Ngwobe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tammy. Top stories: Asawa, at least 8 people killed in Cape Verde flooding, and European Union leaders issue a joint statement on Ukraine. Good afternoon. At least 8 people have been killed and 3 people are missing after flooding on Cape Verde's São Vicente Island. Officials say emergency services are overwhelmed and the floods have cut key roads. Torrential rains lashed the northern island in the Atlantic, located off West Africa, swamping roads and sweeping away vehicles and people on yesterday evening. São Vicente usually records 116 millimeters of rain in a year, according to Cape Verde's Meteorology Institute, but 193 milliliters fell in just 5 hours. Congress of South African Trade Unions COSATU has expressed concern about allegations that the South African National Defence Force or SANDF soldiers have not been paid their allowances for peacekeeping mission duties in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Early this year, 14 SANDF members died in action in the DRC during the fight between M23 rebels and the country's military force. COSATU paramilitary coordinator Matthew Park says the Federation will be seeking an urgent meeting with the ministry to ensure that the matter is swiftly resolved. Park says it's untenable for SANDF personnel to have their allowances that are funded by international organizations such as the United Nations and African Union debited by their generals. The General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, GIWUSA, has condemned recent incidents where some foreign nationals are prohibited from accessing healthcare in the country. Operation Dudula has been spearheading these operations in most parts of the country. The Department of Health has also spoken against the actions. GIWUSA President Mamoetlo Sibe says stopping foreign nationals from accessing healthcare is xenophobic and takes away from the crisis in the country's health system.
These attacks are not only a violation of the most fundamental human rights, but a dangerous diversion from the real crisis in the healthcare system. A crisis created by neoliberal austerity, corporate looting and profiteering, corruption and mismanagement. It is true that the clinics, hospitals and other healthcare services in our working class communities are failing the poor.
The Judiciary Monitoring Group in South Africa, Judges Matter, says the sexual harassment policy would help reduce the act in the court's ecosystem. The group has welcomed the move by Chief Justice Mandi Samaya. The policy aims to safeguard the dignity, integrity and independence of the judiciary by rooting out sexual harassment within its ranks. Attorney and coordinator at Judges Matter, Alison Tilley, says the policy also seeks to address the power dynamics that oftentimes make it hard for complainants to come forward.
This has been a long time in the making. What we are able to say based on policy is that it's not necessary for a complainant to immediately that sexual harassment occurs to say, stop, this is sexual harassment. It accepts that in the workplace where there are these power imbalances, the potential complainant may be in a situation where they can't immediately do that.
And finally, European Union leaders have issued a joint statement saying Ukrainians must have the freedom to decide their own future amid concerns Kyiv is being sidelined from Friday's summit between the US and Russian presidents. The statement, which was not endorsed by Hungary, also says meaningful peaceful negotiations may only take place in the context of a ceasefire. Michael Galla, who is the member of the European Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, says Donald Trump had a clear goal to meet.
I hope he comes out of this talk on Friday, making it clear that both the Europeans, the Ukrainians and the US push Putin not only to a ceasefire, but also to agree to meaningful negotiations that are in the framework of international law.
Recapping the top story this hour, at least 8 people have been killed and 3 others are missing after flooding on Cape Verde's São Vicente Island. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headlines this hour, former Football Association of Zambia president elaborates on the ticket prices in African sports. And US Ryder Cup players will be paid a stipend to donate for the charity of their choice. I'll be back with the details at the bottom of the hour.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
It is exactly 6 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. A lot on our agenda this afternoon as we look at infrastructure developments coming out of Kenya and the financing models that the country is looking at in order not only to finance the construction of their roads but the expansion of their main airport in Nairobi. Also this afternoon, a look at the unemployment figures, the latest coming out of the second quarter figures. And later on, we'll also be speaking to Standard Bank as we look at the Africa-China trade relations. That coming up just before 5 this afternoon. We begin here, however, with South Africa, which has tabled a revised trade offer to the United States. This in a bid to ease tensions following the 30% tariffs that Washington has slapped on local exports. Speaking to the media on Tuesday, together with his counterpart from the Agriculture Department, Minister John Steenhuisen, Parks Dow, who is the Minister of Trade and Industry, says the revised offer was approved by Cabinet following what he called unprecedented trade negotiations. Demakatso Leshuru filed this story.
Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Parks Dow says Cabinet approved the new proposal to be submitted on Tuesday, building on an earlier offer made in May and responds directly to issues raised in the U.S. 2025 National Trade Estimate Report.
Cabinet has approved that South Africa submits a revised offer as a basis for negotiations with the U.S. South Africa continues consultations with industry in this regard, in consultation with other members of the Southern Africa Customs Union, will identify specific lines to respond to this request. On the economic response package, Cabinet has endorsed the economic response package that includes the establishment of an export desk, which serves as a direct point of contact for affected companies.
But not all of America's demands in these unprecedented trade talks are strictly about trade. Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen says some touch on South Africa's domestic laws, including South Africa's participation in BRICS.
I don't think that's a good precedent to set. I do think, however, that we must have a good hard look at what are our barriers of access to markets around the world and look at how we can remove as many of them as possible, but without compromising your own national sovereignty. And I think that the question you would always ask yourself is, there's a legal saying mutatis mutandis. Would that country allow you to demand the same of them? And I think that should be the rule of thumb going forward.
Both ministers insist there are no plans to change transformative legislation like land reform or broad-based black economic empowerment, saying that would undermine national sovereignty.
I do think that as South Africans it is important that we reaffirm our own commitment to our own sovereignty as a country. The ability to make decisions on national policy and the direction that we're taking as a country is an extremely important point. And when countries engage us and say, we need you to change your national policy, we should not suddenly think that that constitutes a blank BNC, because then it means that before Parliament passes laws, it must consult another country. It's not a very sustainable thing to do.
Still, the government has made some unprecedented concessions to keep competitive access to the U.S. market. Dow would not be drawn on the details.
Now, the trick is not to get the U.S. to read about the offer in the newspaper. So please excuse me, until such time that at least they've received and processed the offer.
Steenhuisen says Pretoria is not prepared to walk away from trade with the US despite the tensions between the two countries.
They said that we take far too long to lift those bans. They say that they're out of the avian zone and the disease has been dealt with, and yet these prohibitions on them bringing chicken into the country remain in place. So we've gone back to them and said, okay, your animal health experts will say when you have an outbreak and ban, and then when you feel that you've dealt with it and you get the all clear from your veterinarians, you can lift it. It is a very generous offer and a very unprecedented thing for one country to give to another, and it obviously involves a huge element of trust, but it just shows, I think, South Africa's commitment from a trade perspective to try and address some of the things that the US have regarded as trade irritants over a number of years.
At the same time, Dow says South Africa is pushing hard to grow trade in other parts of the world, including Asia and within Africa through the African Continental Free Trade Area.
But if you look at our trade basket, Africa is the most important. It remains the most important market for South Africa.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Dimakatso Leshoro in Pretoria.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
It is exactly 12 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. We turn our focus now to South Africa's unemployment rate, which has increased to 33.2%. This in the second quarter of 2025. This is a rise from 32.9% that was recorded during the first quarter of the year. The country's statistics agency says the number of unemployed persons grew by 140,000, and that brings the number to 8.4 million South Africans who are now unemployed, while the number of employed persons increased by 19,000 to 16.8 million. Meanwhile, Nkosinathi Mahlangu, who is the head of youth employment portfolio at Momentum Group, says unemployment statistics highlight the acute challenges that are faced by South African youth, and this is in comparison to their global peers. To help us unpack this further this afternoon, we are joined by Nkosinathi Mahlangu, head of youth employment portfolio at Momentum Group. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to Africa in Business.
Good afternoon, Thami, and greetings to all the listeners.
So what would be your reaction to the second quarter unemployment rate? It has worsened by 0.3 of a percentage point and is now sitting at 33.2. Was this somewhat expected?
Well, thanks once again, Thami. It was somewhat expected, and this is based on the fact that we are aware that the economy is not growing as we would like it to be, and there are other contributing factors in as far as challenges faced by young South Africans from a skills mismatch point of view, and also access to opportunities in as far as their entrepreneurship aspirations are concerned. So that 0.3 increase was expected. However, the question still remains in terms of where to from here.
Certainly. I mean, as you've highlighted, these numbers do show that South Africa continues to grapple with one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. How is the country faring, though, in comparison to the rest of the world?
It's quite an interesting view because, when you look at today's statistics of over 45% of unemployed youth, and then you look at other developing countries, especially in the BRICS group, like your Brazil and your India, they are like 20% and below. And one would definitely want to find out in terms of how can we bridge that gap and what are those other developing countries getting right in as far as getting their youth unemployment stats at the bare minimum compared to where we are. But I think it's also, looking in terms of what can South Africa do differently, whether it's from the corporate side of things and in terms of the interventions that are already available that can also help us, dent this unemployment rate.
I must say, Mr. Mahlangu, the issue of youth unemployment and also, women unemployment has been an Achilles heel for the country for an extended period of time. So what is it that the country is not getting right? Is it a misdiagnosis? What really is at the heart of this problem?
I think it's more of, we do have policies and plans in place. However, at the implementation thereof, that's where we tend to fall short. I mean, when you're looking at the institutions of higher learning, for instance, we always get young people graduating with qualifications that might not, be in demand in as far as the economic demands are concerned. And this is where now we need to bridge those gaps in terms of what does the economy of South Africa need in as far as skills are concerned. And again, critical skills that we always talk about on an annual basis. How can we put our finger on the pulse to know what critical skills do we need per sector, whereby we can now go back into these institutions of higher learning to say, let us channel our young people through these qualifications so that they have a job or some form of economic activity on the other side of the intervention. So I think we just need to work a little bit more closer from the business sector, the economic sectors, and the institutions of higher learning in general.
If we look at the numbers, the unemployment rate for women was at 35.9%, for men at 31.0%. That's a gap of 4.9 percentage point. If we look at the youth aged between 15 and 34, that's standing at 43.9%. Why does there seem to be a delay in connecting the dots that you've highlighted now, a match between the necessary skills and what young people are actually being capacitated with at institutions of higher learning?
Yeah, those numbers, Thami, they are a true reflection, number one, of the South African population. We are a predominantly youth and a predominantly female country. So, which means our interventions should also be intentional in as far as advancing the economic aspirations of women and also having youth-focused initiatives whereby we know that which areas of the economy can we ring fence for young talent, young market entrants, and also looking at entrepreneurship differently, because currently in most instances entrepreneurship has tackled through a one-size-fits-all approach, which is where we're getting it wrong. So we just need to tailor make entrepreneurship interventions and also look in terms of how are we upskilling young people with the skills that are in demand, and how do we bring corporate South Africa into this equation in as far as allowing them to champion their respective sectors to say, these are the key areas where we can get young people and females as well empowered through, economic activity opportunities. So we just need a much more centralized, much more focused approach that can take us out of this quagmire.
Well, one of the things that you've highlighted, Mr. Mahlangu, is that the U.S. tariffs do threaten the competitiveness of local startups, and this would then restrict export opportunities and stifle growth in various sectors that are very much critical for job creation. What impact are these international trade measures having on the broader youth employment landscape?
Yeah, the tariffs, especially the U.S. Tariffs, to be specific, has been, a bit of a tough one when you look at, what we had in place already through the African Growth and Opportunity Act. And one would think in terms of how would these tariffs now affect AGOA, and looking at a sector like agriculture, where we also, trying to encourage young people to go into agriculture in as far as their entrepreneurship pathway is concerned. We're also thinking now these are the sectors that would create more entry-level jobs for also the youth and the female participants to be actively involved. So when you look at these tariffs now in terms of how will they negatively affect, number one, economic growth within the specified sector and the employment opportunities that might be lost in the process, because now businesses will look in terms of how do I still stay afloat as a business, and tapping into new market or accessing new markets. It's another challenge because now the global sphere is very much competitive, so it wouldn't be an easy plug and play as one would think. So we have quite a mountain to climb, but I think it's all about having a plan and being intentional in terms of how do we navigate our way out of this sticky situation.
And talking about being intentional, you as Momentum, and specifically you under your portfolio of youth employment, have been putting some measures in place. Talk to us about your contribution to the reduction of the unemployment rate, specifically among the youth demographic.
It's been quite an interesting and a learning journey for the Momentum Group Foundation, whereas for the past 7 years, we have embarked on the youth employment and entrepreneurship strategy, where we're working with a number of institutions, from your training institutions to your non-profit institutions, in terms of getting young people upskilled with skills that will land them into jobs at the end of the intervention. And all this is also, research-led in as far as getting those insights to understand where in the economy can we plug in and who to partner with. Because one thing we've learned as Momentum Group is that through partnership, that's where we can turn the corner in as far as getting young people economically active. So it's through those partnerships where we can now, look at statistics that will show that we have placed young people into ICT jobs. We have placed young people into, economic sectors that one wouldn't necessarily think would yield positive results. But through the partnerships that we have managed to learn and collaborate in getting young people economic aspirations advanced.
That's the big C word, collaboration, and that's exactly what it's going to take to reverse the figures that we are seeing quarter by quarter. Mr. Nkosinathi Mahlangu, we thank you so much for your insight and your commentary this afternoon.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Thami.
Thank you, sir. He's the head of youth employment at Momentum Group. He takes us to exactly 22 minutes after 4 p.m.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126 and we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am,
It's not just talk, it's your chance to air your views, share your opinion, engage with the community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Our focus now turns to Kenya at 23 minutes after 4 p.m., where the government has invited international development lenders such as the Japan International Cooperation Agency, China's Exim Bank and the African Development Bank, amongst others, to finance a $2 billion expansion of its main airport in Nairobi. This is 9 months after it cancelled a deal with India's Adani Group. You will remember that the founder of the Adani Group was indicted in the United States. This proved to be too much of a risk as far as association is concerned for Kenya, and they withdrew from that particular deal. Now, it has been reported that Kenya, which is seeking new ways to finance its infrastructure projects due to sharply rising debt, will also issue a securitized bond for 175 billion shillings, and that equates to $1.36 billion locally as well as abroad next month for road construction specifically. Let's get more details from Francis Sang, an economist based in Kenya. A very good afternoon to you. Great to have you with us on Africa in Business.
Thank you. Thank you for having me once again.
Now, when we look at Kenya, the country is already facing rising public debt. Can they afford to borrow any more?
It's a tall task when you look at the debt, because currently Kenya, 65% of Kenya's, that's the ratio of Kenya's debt to GDP. It's at 65%. But the government has faith that it will be able to generate more revenue in the future and to unlock revenue locally. And that's why I think they have faith that in their strategy, they'll be able to meet this debt. Although when you look at it, it's a very tall order for the country at the moment to get into debt situations when it comes to financing of building of infrastructure in the country.
let's look at the strategies and some of the strategies that have been used. We see, according to Reuters, that the Transport Minister Davis Chirchir says that he intends to issue a securitized bond worth 1.36 billion US dollars. That's 175 billion shillings. And this is for road construction specifically. One wonders then if this very same approach cannot be used when it comes to, securing other public-private partnership deals that have been signed with the Adani Group. Are you still?
Pardon? I didn't get that question. Yes.
Yes. I was asking about the strategy that is being used. Reuters has reported that the Transport Minister says he intends to issue bonds, securitized bonds worth 1.6 billion US dollars, and this is next month. And these bonds are specifically going to be for road construction. So can't the same approach be used for other projects that were part of the public-private partnership deal that was signed with the Adani Group that Kenya has now actually withdrawn from?
Yes. Now, after the withdrawal of the Adani deal, the government has no other option other than to finance its projects using debt. Because with the Adani deal, there are two things when you look at the pros and cons of it. The pro of the Adani deal is that you don't need the funding immediately, because now you get into a partnership with this conglomerate, then you give them the facility to run the infrastructure in the country for a period of time, like the Adani deal was like for 30 years. But now after that indictment of one of the owners, the Adani deal, that's why Kenya has to go back to debt. And the problem with the two, in any way you look at it, it's that really there is a risk of losing sovereignty as a country when you go too deep into debt, or when you go into a PPP, when you allow a foreign conglomerate to run very important infrastructure in your country. But for the country, the options are few and they're limited. For example, you can see that the Kenya government is trying to get into another PPP deal with Etihad, which is a company from the UAE, to extend the standard gauge railway up to the border of Kenya and Uganda. And that's just one of the items. Recently, Kenya got financing from China of $950 million that was split into the various development projects in manufacturing, in roads, but still it's not enough. And now we have this problem of the airport, where we have an international airport, but services are crippling due to the challenges that it's facing. Especially during peak hours, it only has one runway. It needs to expand its facilities for clearing, because there are cases of it being slow when it comes to clearing passengers who are traveling through the airport. And the government is predicting that at the end of 2025, Kenya, within the year, will have more than 25 million passengers through the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And that's why it needs to expand. So it's at a corner. And now it just has to go to debt, because the PPP deals are few in the country, and one was cancelled.
So when we're looking at this airport expansion and construction project, the government has said that they are going to go ahead with the construction of it, and at a later stage they would consider concessioning it. What is your take on this particular approach? Do you believe that they're likely to recover the monies that they're going to be spending as part of the construction costs through concessioning?
The money in reality cannot be recovered now, maybe in the future. And this recovery period of, I think even it can take even half a century to recover that money, looking at the amount they needed, because they need $2 billion plus for the construction. So maybe how we can look at it is maybe the government is looking at having an infrastructure that will spur business activity to help the country generate income, maybe through tourism, maybe handling of cargo, and also development of the manufacturing and the agricultural sector. So the airport will just be like a catalyst for this development into the future.
Right.
Because, yes.
Okay, so really the intention, you believe, is for the airport to be able to pay off its own debt?
Yes, that is the intention.
You mentioned half a century as the projected timeline in order to be able to pay this back. Is that with or without interest?
Yes, I do so, because when you look at the country has been pressed into a corner when it comes to debt. And when you look at the repayment periods, for example, in February of 2028, the country is expected to make a bullet payment for the Eurobond that it took in 2024 to refinance an older Eurobond that was taken in 2016 and was maturing. And this is $1 billion USD that will be paid. We are currently issuing a bond which has to be paid. So all these payments are generated by taxpayer money. So for the airport needs to generate its own money to pay for the debt for its expansion. And the projection of the government is that the activity within the airport will be spurred, and this will spur other economic activities in the country for the airport to be able to pay. And this is mainly, I think, the outlook of the technocrats in the government, the people who are doing these calculations and the options for the country to develop, and they're looking at it in this manner.
Mr. Sang, we'll have to leave it at that for this afternoon, but thank you for a really comprehensive breakdown of the sources of funding and the various models that are available to Kenya, as well as the decisions that they've taken in order to ensure the development and the upkeep of their infrastructure. We thank you for your time, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Francis Sang. He's an economist based in Kenya. He takes us to exactly 4:32 Central African time as we head over now to the economics desk, where Nosipho Zuma is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Good afternoon. In your business indicators, the SAWA, $1 is trading at 17 Rand 73 in South Africa. In Botswana is trading at 13 Pula 397. In Namibia, it is trading at 17 Namibian dollars 739. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 23 kwacha to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 55. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 139 birr 8. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,000 shilling 545. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,000 shilling 498. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 532. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 486 Egyptian pound 40. In Tunisia, it is trading at 2 dinar 89. In Algeria, it is trading at 129 dirham 177. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 8 dirham 955. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,870 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,344 and platinum at $1,328 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $66.34 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And for the business of sport, here is Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And in our business of sport, we begin with the football news. The European champions, Paris Saint-Germain, have signed centre-back Elia Zabani from Premier League club Bournemouth on a 5-year contract, with the 22-year-old becoming the French club's first Ukrainian player in history. Financial details were not disclosed, but media reports said the transfer fee was worth around $73 million. The Ukraine international was key and a key part of a Bournemouth defensive lineup last season, making 36 appearances as the club achieved positive goal difference in Premier League campaign for the first time, finishing 9th. Sale of tickets for the Kenya's crucial Group A match against Zambia in the 2024 African Nations Championship CHAN has been suspended. Sport is not just a form of entertainment and maintaining a healthy lifestyle for athletes. It is also a business that requires sports clubs and federations to generate sport revenue. The ongoing CHAN tournament tickets go for $2, regular $4 and $8 for the VVIP. The cost of living in Africa is high and accessing tickets to watch sport is not cheap. Netball Zambia Secretary General Pritchard Ngoma says ticket price depends on the economy of the country.
Ticket pricing depends on the economic setup of each particular country. Is sport generally supported as much as every country would love to? What is more supported in every country is football. So if you're going to equate football to other sports disciplines, I think that is an unfair equation, because football gets almost 80% of the budget sport in some countries as compared to other sports codes. So if you are going to attract sponsors, will it be about the ticket pricing? Is it about the marketing ability? What policies are in place to support all sports codes? What policies are in place to encourage sports that are low performing to get to higher levels?
Ngoma says federations cannot just increase the ticket price in line with other countries, but there must be wide consultation and also look at ways to generate funds for clubs while attracting fans.
So there are several issues that need to be looked at for us to get to a standard pricing. You can talk about different pricing for different sports codes, but some pricing may not be able to even support simple things like supporting the volunteers or managing a sport event bigger than the simple budgets that we propose to government. There are overflows that include making sure that the volunteers are transported. There is water, there's food, there's a transport allowance. So I think this is dependent on a country's economy, policies that have been put in place by the different government.
And former Football Association of Zambia President Simata agrees that much sport is not just for entertainment and healthy lifestyle. It is still not created revenue for the teams and provide economic growth for the players.
Yes, I agree. Football is not just a form of entertainment or maintaining a healthy lifestyle, not just for athletes, but for even citizens in a country. But football is also a business, and it is slowly beginning to make sense in that direction, especially in our parts, Africa, where for a long time it was just entertainment.
Let's end with golf news. The US Ryder Cup team includes Scotty Scheffler, JJ Spaun and Xander Schauffele, while the European team consists of Rory McIlroy, Justin Rose and Tommy Fleetwood. The 2025 Ryder Cup will be held at the birthplace. And now, for the first time, US Ryder Cup players will be paid to compete, receiving $100,000 stipend and $300,000 for charity, totaling $500,000 per player. This is a significant change from the previous practice where all funds were directed to charities. The European team will not be receiving any direct compensation. Each US player will receive $200,000 stipend. And PGA of America had provided $200,000 per player to be donated, and that had been in place since 1999. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwena@sabc.co.za. That's MOKOENATA @SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 4:40 Central African Time. Now, the SABC is pleased to announce the launch of the new self-registration platform. Vendors wishing to do business with the SABC can self-register on our internally developed platform. Vendors are able to access this platform on our website, which is https://www.sabc.co.za/SABC/ under e-tenders, or you can self-register at etender.sabc.co.za. And when you get there, all you need to do is follow the prompts and voila, you'll be registered as a vendor. Visit the SABC social media pages for more details.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Let's take a look at a small business development in South Africa, where the Minister, Stella Ngubeni, has emphasized the limited participation of small businesses in both regional and global markets. She was speaking at the 2025 Pakistan-South Africa Trade Summit. There she identified key barriers such as limited access to finance, inadequate infrastructure, as well as the shortage of effective business development agencies as some of the major challenges that are being faced by small businesses in the country. Innocent Somosa has more on the story.
Pakistan is known to be a global player in textile and leather, while South Africa has a robust commercial infrastructure and regional distribution channels. The chairman of Pakistan-South Africa Trade Federation, Rafiq Memo, says effective trade zones, co-branding and professional sourcing arrangements can expand market access between the two countries.
Foreign ministers here, trade ministers here, they can make the mechanism between the government of South Africa. So we will raise our shoes, this tariff issue, so we can make the policy how we can bring the goods from Pakistan and we can put in the Africa market.
He did, however, point out ongoing issues related to visa application processes.
Secondly, sir, we have a lot of challenges in the visas. Our South Africa High Commission in Islamabad, they are given the visa but very small and short periods. And when I was in Pakistan, I spoke to the High Commission in Islamabad. So we are facing these kind of challenges. Our businessmen, they want to visit here, but they get very small limit visas.
South Africa's Minister of Small Business Development, Stella Ngubeni, has reaffirmed the pivotal role small businesses hold in strengthening the nation's economy.
We're growing economies, we're transforming economies, but we are also creating jobs. Because yes, the big firms are contributing to tax and the many other important things that they're doing, but jobs are created by smaller enterprises. And yet, the participation of small enterprises in regional and global value chains remain limited.
The minister went on to detail the obstacles facing the sector, including structural and financial barriers.
Limited access to finance, the poor infrastructure, the lack of business development services, fragmented markets, and regulatory complexities. Those are what are really hammering the participation or the meaningful participation of small enterprises in the global and regional value chains. We are currently, like Pakistan, we're navigating a complex global landscape that is marked by the geopolitical volatility that I spoke about.
She urged delegates to maintain their commitment to South Africa through a sustained investment and partnership.
We are the gateway to the African market of more than 1 billion consumers. We have good infrastructure, we've got financial systems, whether you're talking about aviation, we've got stable leadership. Even though we're in the GNU and most people have really had concerns to say, will there be policy stability And you may have seen that even though at times we have minor differences, but we're able to rise up and find each other. And this is what makes us to be unique. But stability is important for anyone who wants to invest, and therefore we are calling upon yourselves to increase your investment. As I said, we are a gateway to Africa.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg.
African enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 4:45 Central African time. We continue our focus on small and medium enterprises. Now, South Africa has over 2.5 million SMMEs, employing nearly 10 million people. And despite this, many corporates still see them mainly through the lens of CSI, or corporate social investment, and the compliance is part of what the corporates are looking at. It's a tick box exercise for many of them to be supporting SMMEs. And this is something that the founder and managing director of the transformation firm, who is also the organizer of the upcoming SMME Empowerment Summit, Matsi Mshe, says simply has to change. She says it's high time that small businesses are seen as more than just charity cases. But instead of that, they are agile partners for innovation, and that large corporates cannot afford to overlook small and medium enterprises. She joins us this afternoon. A very warm welcome to you, Mayor Matsi Mshe. Welcome to African Business.
Thank you so much, Thami, for having me. Thank you.
Now, it's great to have you with us. And perhaps let's start with an understanding. I just found the title of your business, the name of your business, quite interesting. The Transformation Firm. Tell us about what you do there.
We are an organizational transformation company. It's not just BE transformation, it's business turnaround solutions, strategy development. We always in supply development programs, and hence the interest in SMME development. Among other things.
Among others. I mean, you have been quite a leading voice for SMMEs, and you've called on corporates to start taking them seriously, to take them under their wing instead of treating them like charity cases. Why, first of all, was it necessary for you to take this stance in this position? And why is it important for there to be a shift in the dynamics of the relationship between corporate and small business?
Yes, SMMEs have over 2.5. There's over 2.5 million SMMEs in South Africa, employing just over 10 million people. And if you look at the stats SA number of our population at 63.1 million, that's just over 15% of the population is employed by SMMEs. That's significant. And just on that basis, SMMEs deserve to take center stage and to get the respect they deserve. Just on the basis, and looking at that number itself, one person that's employed by an SMME can literally support between 3 to 5 people. That's a significant number of people being supported by being employed by SMMEs.
So that being the case, that being the case, and the numbers, bearing evidence of that, how did SMEs find themselves in this position of being the unwanted stepsisters?
I think it's really not fully understanding, and I think it's people like us that are shining the light on the issue. If you're not, because I'm an entrepreneur and an SMME myself, I'm experiencing these things, and I'm saying, hold up, there's something major that we're doing here, so pay attention. So you need to have been experiencing the issues to be able to actually shine a light on them. And perhaps we can't really blame big business because they don't know the issues, but it's us, the people on the ground, that need to bring these issues to attention.
So talk to us about the upcoming SMME Empowerment Summit. What are the expectations from the summit? What's on the agenda? And how are SMEs going to reposition themselves to actually become strategic partners when it comes to their relationship with corporates?
So we're hosting our inaugural SMME Empowerment Summit in Alexandra. It's on the 11th to the 12th of September 2025 and at the A-Track Sports Complex in Alex. The reason why we chose Alex, we did some research. Firstly, I come from Alex and I wanted to do something for the community that birthed me and nurtured me. But secondly, there's a need. There's very high unemployment rate. There's close proximity to the richest square mile in Africa, but still very much underprivileged and underrepresented. So we attended a few of these events in the suburbs, in Bryanstons of this world, and not, all the northern suburbs, but none ever of the magnitude that we're planning in Alexandra has been done. So we're bringing together role players in the SMME development ecosystem, from the Gauteng Enterprise Propellers, CEDFA, the Innovation Hub. We're also bringing corporate players to come and support and sponsor the event so that there will be free entrance for the SMMEs. So we're going to have keynote speakers to inspire and motivate, master classes with question and answer sessions. We're going to have panel discussions. We're also going to have a pitching competition where the SMMEs will be given an opportunity to pitch their business and stand to win prize money. And there'll be exhibitions. It's quite a number of things. We're going to have speakers talking about funding readiness, how to get your business funding ready. We're going to have someone talking about customer experience management, property management, intellectual property management.
And as you're going through the various topics, it's quite clear that all sectors literally are going to be covered in just various aspects of starting, running and scaling a business. So I'm sure that's going to be really handy for SMMEs as well as the corporates that will be there. We'll have to leave our conversation at that for this afternoon. Matsimshe, thank you so much for joining us on Africa in Business and wishing you all the best for the upcoming SMME Empowerment Summit.
Thank you, Thami, for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Have a great one. That summit taking place in Alexandra. That's Alexandra Township in Johannesburg from the 11th to the 12th of September. It's gone exactly 4:52.
From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
So when most people think of Africa-China trade, their minds immediately jump to some of the main, cities and the main provinces. I'm talking about Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen. However, one of the biggest drivers of this relationship is actually not a coastal megacity at all. It's actually a landlocked province that you've likely never heard of before, unless, of course, you're familiar with China and you do business there quite often. And I'm talking now about Hunan province. It's in central China, and this province has emerged as the country's strategic hub for expanding trade with the African continent. Philip Myberg, who's Group Head of Trade, Business and Commercial Banking at Standard Bank Group, joins us now on the line to shed more light on the Africa-China trade dynamics. Good to have you with us. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Thanks, Thami. Good to be with you. Thanks.
Perhaps let's start off, Philip, by looking at and then asking you really what your outlook for the Africa-China trade over the next few years is, and how can African businesses position themselves for sustainable success in that corridor, and sustainable being the operative word there.
Yeah, Thami, thanks. We're very positive and optimistic about the trade relationship as it relates to China. We think there's a lot of upside growth, and there's a couple of factors for that. One, of course, is the trade war currently underway, and the adverse tariffs being put in place by the US, specifically on African and South African goods, is certainly playing a role in that on the negative side. And then on a positive front, from a pull factor perspective, some of the policies that we're seeing come out of China are certainly very positively being received. You mentioned Hunan That's a great example of the Chinese central government tasking a specific province, to put in place specific policies to drive and champion trade with Africa. And we're starting to see that take effect. If you look at the numbers, last 3 years, trade with that province specifically is up 15% year on year for the last 3 years on average. So really good momentum on that front. And they're putting in place policies, they're putting in place tangible things, removing non-tariff barriers. Of course, there's also been movement on the tariff side that really makes China an increasingly alternative option for South African and African exporters.
Hunan province, what makes it special? What is it known for? And what are the factors that have contributed to its rapid growth and this very strategic positioning as far as Africa and trade is concerned?
Yeah, so Hunan, of course, has a very symbolic weighting to it as well. It's the birthplace of Chairman Mao Zedong, the founding father of the People's Republic of China. So it's got significant gravitas for the Chinese Communist Party and central government of China by extension. Changsha is fast becoming one of the fastest growing cities in China. It's one of those upcoming tier 2 cities with massive investment being attracted to it. So it's got a lot of economic momentum. The fact that it's being tasked to drive trade with Africa can certainly also be to the benefit of African exporters to plug in directly into a provincial and a large city economy that is fast growing in its own right. Of course, China has had some economic challenges in some of the more well-known sectors and provinces that we all know well. But Hunan should not be taken lightly. This is a province that, if it was a country, the GDP would make it the 20th largest country in the world. It's got a GDP almost double the size of South Africa. So it's certainly, just because many listeners might not have heard about it, certainly doesn't mean it's not an important and large opportunity. And of course, with the infrastructure being put in place, it's not just becoming the province itself as an opportunity, but just using it as a stepping stone into the rest of China for African exporters.
Certainly very impressive as far as its positioning is concerned. Let's wrap up by finding out how you as Standard Bank are supporting your clients, for instance, in longer term financing, in matchmaking opportunities that help to convert exposure into tangible deals, because ultimately it's the results that matter, right?
Absolutely. And we're proud of the tangible impact that we're having on the African continent for our clients. We've got a great relationship with ICBC, got a great relationship with Hunan government specifically, and through that we're putting in place participation at economic trade expos like the CAETE that recently took place. We have matchmaking events, matching South African exporters and African exporters to Hunan buyers. We've got learning and insight sessions. There's so much happening from a practical perspective. We're also connecting our African businesses to agricultural equipment and technology specifically to help with agricultural diversification and processing of goods on the continent, because it's really important that we leverage Chinese technology for the industrialization of Africa. So really a nice circular ecosystem developing in the relationships that we have in China to the benefit of African businesses.
Philip Myburgh, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. And Hunan province, I'm sure, will be making it onto the lips of many a business person after the accolades that you've highlighted and their development and contribution. We thank you for your time.
Thanks, Thami.
Thank you. That's Philip Myburgh. He's Group Head of Trade for Business and Commercial Banking at Standard Bank Group. Well, he brings us to the end of Africa in Business for this afternoon. Thank you so much to our phenomenal team, Jwalane Tulengwap on the news and the economics desk, Nosipho Zuma, Sport, Figile Lingwati, our producer, Mabo Bulok, our technical producer, Ndandolo Tuli, and social media talent, Botelezi. And it's just a moment to go, but really quickly, Annie Kalonji standing by for Vue d'Afrique. What do you have in store for us? You've got 10 seconds, literally.
Alors, bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa. Aujourd'hui sur Vue d'Afrique, il s'agira de plusieurs organisations en Afrique du Sud qui ont annoncé leur retrait du dialogue national prévu pour le 15 août. En Centrafrique, nous allons parler du bloc républicain pour la défense de la Constitution qui conditionne la tenue des élections par l'organisation au préalable d'un dialogue politique inclusif et sincère. Alors, c'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci beaucoup, Thami.
Well done. Absolutely awesome. That's how we hand over to the French desk for this afternoon. Until tomorrow, give yourself a splendid evening further. It's exactly 5 p.m.
Vue d'Afrique, un magazine des actualités en français sur Channel Africa. Rendez-vous du lundi au vendredi avec Joël Mouteba sur Channel Africa de 15h